Welcome all! So I need to talk about The Flash. To me, this movie is a masterpiece of cinema. Now I know this is completely different than my usual Pokemon content, but I feel I have to make this review. I have never been touched more by a movie ever in my life. I cannot stop thinking about it. I've already seen it twice. I want to go see it 10 more times. This movie is fantastic. I have never seen anything that comes close to what this movie accomplished. It is astounding, everything that this movie did. The story, the acting, the characters, the accuracy this movie had to superpowers is amazing. The cameos were incredible. The pacing was fantastically well done. The music and the score was on point. This movie was funny. The cinematography is fantastic. The emotion that The Flash evokes is mind-blowingly out of this world. The overall tone of this movie and the messaging is so inspirational, and also this movie is a love letter to the Man of Steel and is a great sequel to Justice League, and especially if you loved the Justice League Zack Snyder cut. I have never thought about a movie after seeing the movie as much as I have already about The Flash, ever. This movie has touched me in a way that no other film has ever done. It's stunning to me that a film was able to touch me as much as this movie has. Now, Flash has always been my favorite superhero, and I'm used to not having my expectations met, but this movie exceeded every expectation and hope that I had for a movie about my favorite superhero, The Flash. They did so well, and I understand why they were defending this movie and wanted to get this movie out for anything. I understand why, because it deserved it. And honestly, I hope that if you haven't seen this movie, you will give it a chance. Despite anything you might have heard about this movie, you have to see it. It is so moving and is so different than anything you have seen on film before. And for those of you who have seen the movie but didn't care for it, or you thought it was okay, or maybe even you liked it a little bit but not a lot, I challenge you to really think about what you saw in this movie. Because if you ponder what you saw and what each character went through, I think you will, by the end of it, change your mind and think, wow, this was a great movie. And I do want to say one thing about the CGI that everyone is talking down about. Personally, for me, I would not go see a movie because of bad CGI. As long as I can tell what's going on, I don't think it hinders it at all. For the CGI, I thought it ranged from excellent in some points, especially when he's running really fast or when he's in the Chrono Bowl, to not that bad. And the director has already offered a reason to why the CGI was the way it was in certain parts. And I don't go for a movie for the CGI anyway, I go for the story and characters myself. But for me, what beats out any potential bad CGI is the amazing cinematography. This movie is so cinematic. It has so well done pictures to film that you just have to see it. I'm going to get into all the cinematography aspects of this film when I start talking about the movie with spoilers, but I just want you to know that this movie is so cinematic and it delivers a message that you will not find, in my opinion, in any other superhero movie. And I'll get into that with my spoiler talk. But if you love original storytelling, you will love this movie. If you love to see great acting and wonderful storytelling with very, very little plot holes, if any. I'm usually a stickler on story, but this movie does not really have plot holes at all. I struggle to think of any, in all honesty. And that's an amazing accomplishment that these people were able to put forward on screen. And also, I gotta say again, this movie is really touching, but it is also really funny. And there are laugh out loud moments. And the crowds of both of the times I went to the movie, I heard them laughing plenty. So if you want to be moved, or if you really want to laugh, this is the movie to go to. And also I have to say this, if you are refusing to see it because of the actions of a particular person, I feel like you're robbing yourself of joy. And I feel like you're just hurting yourself. You're allowing someone else to dictate whether or not you can have a good time at this movie. Because you will enjoy this movie if you give it a shot. Alright, I'm going to start talking about spoilers now, so if you haven't seen it yet, go ahead and stop watching, and then come back after you see the movie. Alright, so let's start with the story. This story is very well written. This was an epic storytelling adventure. It is a story about the characters and about what happens if you dwell on the past. Because Barry Allen has had one of the most tragic origin stories of any superhero, with his mother dying and then his dad being blamed for a murder he did not commit. And in the start of the film, you have the hope that Barry can exonerate his father with the videotape evidence, but that is dashed away when he sees that the dad does not look up to the camera, and that won't allow them to win their court case appeal. And this sends the Flash, who we've seen up to this point be emotionally scarred with not having any friends and with having awkward social interactions with Batman and Alfred and Wonder Woman. And you see this being built up, and then he just unleashes. He has nothing left in the tank emotionally, so he just runs and runs and runs, and he ends up going faster than he ever has before. And that's when he enters the Chrono Ball, which will allow him to time travel. And when he discovers this, he has an epiphany that he can fix things from the past. And Barry Allen, being the hero he is, wants to save his family. And he does heed Batman's advice, and he tries to affect the timeline as little as possible. And you see that it does work. The mom does survive, and as time progressed, he grew older and older and actually had a family for his early years. And then that's when we're introduced to the real villain of the movie, the Dark Flash. And that is when he is shoved out of the time stream. And that's how he winds up in the past with his younger self. And then when he interacts with his younger self, this is where you see the acting take on a new level. It is astonishing how they had two Flashes in the same movie. It looks like there are two actors playing each role. It is done to perfection. I thought they were the same person on screen, two of them. I have never seen that before, ever, and they interact with each other. It's amazing. It is so well done. And then the character development really takes off there, because you see the difference in the sociability between the two Flashes. You have Barry Allen, who grew up with his mom. He has a friend group. He has actually asked out the girl that our Barry Allen never was able to ask out. And then you have that Barry Allen willing to play darts with the toy monkey that our Flash has been treasuring this whole time. He's not throwing darts at it because he doesn't value his mother. He's playing darts with it because he has other memories with his mom. That toy doesn't evoke the same level of feeling that it would have for our Barry Allen. And I think that's what he figures out later. So the acting is so well done just with the Flash alone. And I haven't even started talking about Batman yet. Both Batman in this movie are amazing. You have Ben Affleck Batman doing incredible superhero heroics in the beginning against Falcone's men. It's amazing to see him take these people down. And then we have Michael Keaton Batman, which I think is fantastic that they actually wrote it to where he was able to single-handedly stop crime in Gotham. And now there's no need for Batman. Batman has always said in the comics that he would stop being Batman when he was no longer needed. And to finally see a movie where that becomes a reality is mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing because you wouldn't want to go to a regular Batman movie and just see a beautiful Gotham and Batman say, "Wow, I did it, I can stop now." That would feel pretty weird. But in this movie it works because this shows that Batman was successful. Now, this does have an impact on Bruce Wayne because he no longer feels that he is needed, so he became a hermit, basically, which makes sense for his character because his character was defined by the pain of losing his family to crime. And when there's no crime to fight now, it totally makes sense that he would divulge into that Bruce Wayne we see on film. But we see that he is willing to, when it comes down to it, put the suit back on, and you see his character progress from when we first meet him to when he thanks Flash to when he is dying that he revived him and brought him back. That moment is really touching because it shows that Bruce Wayne, he loves to save people. That's what he's meant for. And the Flash reminded him of that. That was so moving. And then when they go and get Supergirl and they were looking for Superman, that was a neat twist. I thought they kind of threw in a little bit of Red Sun when she was in Russia the whole time. And also, this is a plot point where people have been criticizing the movie. They say that Supergirl didn't have any effect in the movie. It was actually a detriment that they went and found Supergirl. I don't agree with that because Zod would have eventually found her. And when he did, she wouldn't have stood a chance because she was in the room that prevented her from getting the yellow sunlight. So they actually, by saving her, gave her a fighting chance. And as you saw when she was fighting Zod, she was doing a fantastic job in the beginning. She was just too inexperienced because she wasn't counting on Zod getting the best of her there. And Supergirl was responsible for getting Barry's powers back. So we have her arc too, where she comes to realize that this world was worth saving because there was kindness in this world. She was rescued by the Flash, and she also saw the length that Zod was willing to go to bring back Krypton, and that did not sit well with her. And we see this when she says that her S stands for hope. And that's when she realizes that she has to get into the fight too. And then we get a great scene of our Barry Allen getting his powers back. It is awesome. And then when the fighting starts, we see something that I alluded to this earlier, in the fight against Zod. Now, Zod is a villain in this movie, but he is not the villain. He is a consequence of the real villain in this movie, which is actually the nature of space-time itself, and that is encapsulated in the Dark Flash. And by the way, Dark Flash's purple lightning was awesome. How it was more of a matured version of young Barry's blue lightning, that was well thought out in my opinion and looked really cool. That world was not meant to survive, and we have never seen this in a superhero movie quite in this way. In every superhero movie, except for movies that are built to have a sequel like Empire Strikes Back, where they didn't actually lose, they just haven't won yet. And I think that's the difference with this film. This film, it doesn't matter what difference they made, they would have lost to Zod, and that is what Dark Flash proved. Seldom do we see the heroes lose. We always know the hero is going to win, or unless if it's a two-parter, that you know they'll come back eventually. Because even when you see something catastrophic, you know, okay, well that happened, but we still know that the heroes are going to win because this is a hero movie. No, not with this movie. This movie flips that on its head. It flips it on its head. This movie shows that you cannot win it all. We, as the audience, we were expecting the Flash, Batman, and Supergirl to come up victorious, and that did not happen. That just flips everything on its head. Everyone's looking for the happy ending. But there is no happy ending to this world, and that is what Barry Allen figures out. And by him figuring it out, he actually saves the fabric of space-time because he sees that all the other worlds are collapsing around him because of his actions and because of the actions of young Barry, aka Dark Flash. Because he was not only the source of the paradox, but he was actually the reason why space-time was collapsing. And that comes from such a touching realization that he wants to save his mother. That's what it comes down to. His refusal to let the mom go is actually going to destroy the universe. This writing is so well done. It is on another level. Guys, I was blown away. I am blown away when I think about this. Him refusing to let the mom go actually led him to wanting to kill our Barry Allen, our timeline's Barry Allen. I mean, that shows how long he's been going in this cycle of trying to win against Zod and him not being able to. And that actually allows the young Barry Allen to see the fault in his older self. And that's when he protects our Barry Allen and sacrifices himself, which in turn destroys the Dark Flash. Oh boy, and then we get to the scene that melts the hearts of millions. When Barry Allen returns to the grocery store and removes the can of tomatoes that he placed in the cart to save his mother. That is so touching, so sad. It is so moving to see him say goodbye to the woman that he loved and sacrificed everything to save. But then he gets the brilliant idea of moving the tomatoes to the top shelf for his father to look into the camera to see that it was indeed him there, solidifying his alibi to finally get out of jail. And this point allows Barry to finally start moving on with his life, because now that his father has been cleared, he can now start living his life. And he now knows from seeing his younger self what he is capable of doing. And we see this when he asks out Iris West. Oh my gosh, the story is so well done. There's another criticism of how come Barry didn't go see who killed his mother. I think that's the whole point. He didn't have to go see who killed his mother when he puts the tomatoes in the cart. Because when he does that, it actually, in my view, and the way I see the movie, it erases the Flash from history. There was supposed to be no Flash. Remember, Flash says, "I created a world without metahumans." I think he meant that literally, because there was supposed to be no Flash. That Barry Allen was going to go out on a date with Iris West. He was not going to get shot with the chemicals and lightning. He was never meant to be Flash in that timeline. So we see that our Barry Allen changed history when he went back in time. He made his younger self get his powers, which is really a unique take and an amazing twist on telling a superhero's origin story. One that I was not counting on and one that I really liked. Which is fascinating because if it was the Reverse Flash who killed his mother, which is who I'm presuming is the mother's murderer, the Reverse Flash was never needed to kill the mother because Flash would never have existed, and that is why the Reverse Flash ultimately does it. Now the other question is, how come once he removes the can of tomatoes from his mom's cart, why doesn't he go see the murderer? I think that's the point. He has accepted that his mother needs to die. What matters is that he learns to accept it. Now, addressing the question about whether or not Barry should have seen who killed his mother. On this question, I just look at it from his perspective. Variations of himself literally almost destroyed the very fabric of existence, and he probably didn't want to mess up anything any further. At that point, all he had done was talk to his mother in the grocery store, which probably changed history a tiny bit, but he's just human, and I don't think anyone would fault him for that. And he also saw he could make a very, very minimal change to history by moving the cans of tomatoes to the top shelf. And all that did was change things for the future, not the past. Trying to see who the murderer was might have really altered history way more than that, and we really don't have any idea what that would have done to history either. Also, we need to ask ourselves this question. If you were Barry, would you really want to see your mother be stabbed right before your eyes and then be forced to restrain yourself from saving her? That may have really affected him psychologically. I don't think I could personally bear that, and I think asking him to bear it is just too much. And the point of the movie was that he was accepting that his mother was gone, and he needed to move on with his life. And him finding out who the murderer was, that would not have jived with the rest of the movie. But we do see that this affects his character, and that is the main point. And that character arc of Barry is what sells this movie. Remember, he was seen in the beginning as the joke. We see that Alfred called everyone else first except Flash. And ultimately, the Flash, besides Superman, would be the only one who could have actually saved those babies. Those babies, as they were falling, Superman and the Flash would have been the only two heroes who could have done it. No one else had the skill. What would Cyborg have done? What would Batman have done in that split second? What would Wonder Woman have done? And Aquaman? He wouldn't have been able to do much. The only other one who could have done it is Green Lantern if he had his ring and he created like a big bed for all the babies to land on. That would have been it. But when they called the Flash, that was not the main point. The main point of calling Flash was because they had to stop the water supply from bursting. And Batman was busy. And no one else was responding. And Flash could get there in a flash. So that was really the only reason he was called to the scene. And to save a few people here and there. The babies was just an accident. But even Alfred was shocked and impressed by Flash in that situation. We see from that part of the movie that he was not as valued as he should have been, which was, in my opinion, reinforced with the joke that he made with Wonder Woman and her lasso of truth. I've already talked about the character arc of Michael Keaton, but let's talk about the character arc of young Barry, because young Barry is so happy-go-lucky. He's so go with the flow in the beginning of the movie, and we see with young Barry that he has close friendships with his roommates. And that directly contrasts with how those people are to our Barry in the future, because those were the same people, but they were not really his friends, they were just his coworkers, and they were rather jerks to him because he was not a master at social skills. But then once he learns that his mother was killed in older Barry's time stream, that's when we see his character really change. He started getting more serious and grounded after he found out the truth. And that is why we see him try oh so hard to beat Zod and save everybody, because he was not willing to accept the fact that his mom would be dead. He's lived an entire life with his mother. He couldn't imagine not living a single day without his mother, as opposed to our Barry, who has lived almost his entire life without his mother. So that's important as well. Now, as for Zod, we see him, again, he's not the main antagonist of the movie. He's the foil of the movie, but not the main antagonist. He is what propels the story forward, and we see that he has already killed baby Superman, and that he's looking for Supergirl in order to restart Krypton. He would have torn this planet piece by piece to find Supergirl. So ultimately, he would have won. And he would have done that too if our Flash hadn't given young Flash powers or sought out Batman. So with all that together, this story is so well done. It tells an original story that you're not going to find anywhere else. And it is so touching and so emotionally compelling. I mean, we see the emotion. We feel the emotion when we're sitting there when he contemplates his mother. It is so well done. So I couldn't find any real plot holes in this movie, which is really great because I see plot holes in movies all the time. It's my pastime to find plot holes in movies. But in The Flash, I could not find any, which is incredible for me to say. However, there are just a few things that I wish did happen that would have made this movie even better. I wish that the opening scene when he asks the girl for her candy bar, I wish that he knelt down to pick it up and ate it real fast. I just didn't like that she threw him her candy bar and he just left it on the ground. To me, actually, that was the worst part of the movie. And that's saying something, that would be my least favorite part of the movie, because it was so minor. I just wish that didn't happen because it was so pointless. I mean, I get it bonked him on the head, that was funny, but I wish he'd actually ate it and said thank you, but oh well. Now what I wished for was, I think it would have been really cool if in the beginning those chemicals dropped from the suitcase and were about to hit Gotham's water supply, but then what if the Flash ran down there and caught them before they contaminated the water? I think that would have been a really, really cool scene, and they would have all been able to accomplish something on the bridge there. I think that would have been really cool to see. And the last thing that I wished for was them actually using the Batmobile, other than it just being there and uncovering it with a tarp, and then for Barry to be sleeping in it. I mean, it was really cool to see it, don't get me wrong. I just wish I wish it was used, even just a little bit. The Batplane was used the most, and I loved the Batplane. They did fantastic work on the Batplane. I just wanted to see them use the Batmobile. Just drive it a little. If they attached it to the Batplane, they could have used it when they got to Russia to drive to the compound where they had to go up and find Supergirl. That would have been the best place in the movie to use it, in my opinion. So I was a little disappointed they didn't use the Batmobile, but I was super glad to see it anyway. The pacing in this movie is fantastic, and that opening sequence of him running is phenomenal. And that is what I love about this movie. It is accurate to superpowers of these characters because we see the Flash's speed. In this movie, we see how fast the Flash is, and I love that. And seeing the lightning that goes around him and him able to shoot lightning, I mean, that's so cool. It is such a natural extension of his powers. It's so well done. It is so well done. The cameos of this movie, seeing the old school DC heroes, was really, really great to see them. It was awesome to see Nicolas Cage as Superman. I was blown away. I saw this giant spider and I saw this red, white, and blue streak, and I'm thinking, who is this? What is this from? And then we see Nicolas Cage's face, and that was so great. And then we saw the original Jay Garrick Flash, and then the original Superman, and then we see Christopher Reeve's Superman, and the original Supergirl. It was really well done. And people are talking about defaming these people. I think they're honoring them. I really think they're honoring these characters and these actors. I don't see it in any other way. Now, I gotta talk to you about the cinematography, because of all this talk about the CGI, people are not talking about how cinematic this movie is. When the Flash is running, it is stunning to look at. When the two Flashes are fighting with each other, it is so well choreographed and looks amazing. We have them touching each other's foot, and then you have the yellow lightning and you have the blue lightning, and then you see them running around together. It was so awesome. And then we see the lightning storm that the Flash creates. Oh, it looks amazing. And then we have the lightning sequences, that's well done. And then we have when they phase through the door, it zooms in on young Barry's eye, and then it goes even deeper into the molecules, and then the molecules phase through the door, and then it zooms out back to the eye, and then back to the whole body. It is so well done. I was astonished at how awesome it looked. It was so good, the eye scene. And then we have Supergirl's introduction when she finally gets out of the hole, and I love how the camera pans up to her hand. It never skips a beat. It comes up from the hole and then starts to look at how the sun is moving, and then it moves into her hand, and her bony finger starts to click back into place, and it looks like a regular hand at that point. And then you pan over, and then we see that she is soaking in that sun. And then what do we see? We see the Flash looking to Batman. What are we gonna do? And Batman holds his fist up. I think he was expecting the Batplane, but you see behind the fist, you see the solo figure floating there, and it was Supergirl ready to kick butt. And she takes down all these Russians. And then we see a bullet shot at Batman. She catches the bullet and just destroys the guy in the gun. It was awesome. It was so cinematic. And how about when Supergirl flew the Flash up into the clouds during the thunderstorm? That looked really neat as well. And then when she destroys the missile with her fist, it is so awesome. And then the Batplane flies through the fire. And speaking of the Batplane, every shot with the Batplane is phenomenal. They did so well with the Batplane. When it was first introduced, when it's being lowered in the Batcave, and then when it's flying, and then when it's a silhouette in front of the moon, and then when it is flying into the battle against Zod with Supergirl flying, and then we see the Batplane kicking butt in the battle, and then we see it rotating when the giant Kryptonian jumps on board. It is awesome! The Batplane was easily one of the best parts of this movie. And then we see the cinematography of the bats in the Batcave, and then we see it fly across the screen when Batman says, "I'm Batman," and "Let's get nuts." Oh, it was awesome. And then we have to talk about the fact that there were two Barry Allens on screen at the same time, and they both looked like they were there. It looked like there were two people there. Totally awesome. Now let's talk about the humor of this movie. It is very funny. It is very funny. I thought it was really funny when Flash, after he saved the babies, he gestured to the nurse like, "Here you go." And I also love the scene where young Barry gets his powers and just goes crazy through the city. It is really funny. This movie will make you laugh and cry. It has it all. It has it all. Now let me talk about the love letter that this movie is to Man of Steel. I haven't heard anyone talk about this, but this movie really is a love letter to Man of Steel. If you are a fan of Man of Steel, you will love this movie, because not only does it bring back Zod, but it shows that without Superman, the Earth is doomed. The Earth is doomed without Superman. This movie, even though Superman is not there, well, he is there, but it's brief. But without Superman to take care of Zod, this world is doomed to die. And if that doesn't show that Superman is the strongest character, nothing will. This is also a great sequel to Justice League, especially Zack Snyder's cut, because we see that the Justice League is formed. It is currently a thing. It is what enabled Flash to save those babies, because without the Justice League, they would not have had the cohesion that they did, and they wouldn't have been able to call Flash up and have him come to Gotham. And it is really just great to see an actual functioning Justice League. It is awesome. It really is. And I also love the callbacks that this movie has to previous DC films. In the original Man of Steel, Lois Lane asks about the S on Superman's outfit, and he says it's not an S, it means hope. And then she says, well, here it's an S, how about Superman? And then she's cut off. She's about to say Superman, she was cut off. Well, in this movie, Supergirl, I don't know if you caught this, she asks both Flashes what her S stood for. And the young Barry started to say Supergirl, and then he was cut off by old Flash, who says it means hope. So that was a nice callback to Man of Steel. I don't know if you caught that. And also I liked how the Flash dodged the projectile from Michael Keaton's Batman, because that calls back to when our Flash dodged Ben Affleck's Batman's Batarang. And also, I forgot about this, Batman's fight against the Russians was awesome when he used his Batarangs and then used that Batarang to ricochet off the wall and hit the other Russian. Just phenomenal. Two other callbacks I found were both from Michael Keaton. The first obviously being when he says, "Let's get nuts." And then when he asks both Barrys, "How much do you weigh?" And that also calls back to his own Batman movie. Now here's another point in the plot. Some people say that the Flash was selfish for moving the can of tomatoes to the top shelf at the end. I don't think that was selfish of the Flash. I think he was acting as any hero would if someone was in trouble. And his dad did need saving in the future. And his dad did need saving. I don't think that was selfish of him at all. I thought it was a brilliantly clever way for him to save his dad without interfering much at all with the time stream. And as for the very end, I feel some people are reading a little too much into it. First of all, I think it's safe to say that just like in the comics, I don't think Flash would have been able to put everything back together like it was before. So I don't blame him moving the can of tomatoes from the middle to the top shelf for changing history and the ending like that at all. This is my take. I think the ending would have happened regardless if he had or had not moved the can of tomatoes. I think just him going backwards in time and then returning forwards in time, I think that would have been enough for the time stream to change slightly somehow. So I don't blame Barry Allen for moving the tomatoes for doing it. If anything, it would just be because he was returning to our present by going to the future. And secondly, I think that George Clooney was simply a joke, but a very important joke at that, because it showed that Barry needed to go back and make a few more tweaks to the time stream, just like in the Flashpoint comics, which I think is exactly where they're headed for with James Gunn's DC universe about to kick off. I view it as a launching point personally, and you see that with the after credits scene with Aquaman, because he told him every time he made a change, Aquaman was still there. So I see it more as a launching point, basically. I think the movie's getting a little flack because of the ending, but if you think of it as a launching point that they will use moving forward, I think it will make sense at that point. But mostly, I love the overall tone of this movie and the lessons of acceptance and moving on with your life. It's very inspirational. Even though we see them losing, I think that's the main point. It shows that we can't win it all. I think the message is focus on and fix the now without dwelling on the past, because some problems are just unfixable, and it's those scars that make us who we are. These themes were repeated throughout the movie with Barry Allen's mom, with the math problem, and with Ben Affleck himself when he was telling Barry not to save his parents from being killed. Some movies are larger than life, and those are great, but it's not quite grounded in reality. I feel like this movie will inspire people. It has me. So this is why I feel The Flash is a masterpiece. This is my favorite movie of all time. If you have yet to see this movie, I highly, highly recommend it. You have to see this movie for yourself. It is breathtaking and so original. And also, just because there are a lot of things happening and because, there's a lot going on in the movie, it doesn't mean that it's a mess. It's a beautiful, intricately woven tale. Now, if you saw it and you didn't like it, I challenge you to really think about this movie, because I feel like the more you think about it, the more you dive into it, I think you may change your mind. Now, I'm not telling you how to think, and I'm not telling you have to like this movie, but I feel like if you give it a chance, you will too. And I want you to find enjoyment in this film. That's why I'm doing this review, because I had such a fantastic time with this movie, and I want to spread the joy to other people, and I want you to feel that impact too. So that's my review of The Flash. I feel it's a masterpiece. I am so happy that the director has been slated to film the next Batman movie, and I am really looking forward to that after seeing this movie. And I would like to bid you all adieu. Thank you very much.